October 2016, the activist group the Palestinian Information Center saw accounts of 10 of its administrators suspended by Facebook. April 2017, political analysis websites across the United States began to see dramatic drops in their web traffic through Google. December 2017, Egyptian journalist Wael Abbas's Twitter account was deleted. He'd had 350,000 followers. These are just some of dozens of similar cases. In each, there was no prior warning, no specific reason given, and no avenue of redress provided.
Censorship has changed completely and dramatically because of the internet and because of particularly these big tech companies, which are basically monopolies. They can end your existence online.
I think it's a huge danger. If anybody is interested in the free flow of information, in people challenging their views by reading opposing views, I think you have to be concerned about three giant corporations deciding what information you can see and what information you can't see.
We have these opaque algorithms deciding what we can and cannot see, and we have no idea how they're being controlled. When the censorship occurs on these platforms, the content disappears forever. And I think that that's one of the sort of least democratic things that we could imagine.
Which is ironic, because it is precisely anxiety about threats to democracy that has led to pressure on Google, Facebook, and Twitter to crack down on dubious content.
An entire army of automated Twitter bots and trolls.
Your social media feed may have been part of Russia's interference in the election.
Misinformation, disinformation, troll farms, legions of automated accounts sharing rumors and untruths. Over the past 2 years, the problems with information online have seemed to grow bigger. In October last year, in the aftermath of the 2016 presidential election in the United States, the tech giants were hauled in before Congress and told to take responsibility for what got posted on their sites.
You've created these platforms, and now they are being misused. And you have to be the ones to do something about it.
In Germany, a new law imposes fines of up to 50 million euros if social media sites fail to remove hate speech or fake news within 24 hours. Faced with the prospect of increased regulation and escalating negative PR, the online giants ramped up their efforts.
On the one hand, you could say, well, the platforms need to do something about this. They should be cracking down on fake news. They should be cracking down on hate speech. And yet, what you are effectively approving is that the government should force these private platforms to decide what speech is acceptable and what isn't.
We're giving this kind of power to a group that is not responsible to the general public. We're not talking about a government agency which is required to do things in a transparent way. We're talking about a private company that does everything secretly.
And despite how opaque online censorship can be, sometimes the reasons really aren't all that invisible. In July 2016, Facebook hired Jordana Cutler, a former advisor to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as its head of policy and communications for Israel. In October of that year, executives from Facebook met with Israeli government officials. Soon after, numerous Palestinian activists found their accounts suspended for, quote, violating Facebook's community standards. Israel's justice minister declared this a victory.
לפני שנה הייתי אומרת שקיבלנו ככה, השיתוף פעולה הייתי אומרת היה עומד על 50%, 50% ממה שביקשנו היה מוסר. היום פייסבוק מסירה כבר 95% מהתכנים שאנחנו מבקשים.
Well, it's completely hypocritical because first of all, we know, as Facebook has admitted, that accounts were erased at the request of the Israeli government, number one. And number two, they've done nothing to efface right-wing Israeli incitement against Palestinians, which is far more virulent and bloodthirsty and racist than anything that's been posted on those Palestinian sites.
We put these allegations to Facebook. Although they didn't respond to our specific questions, they sent a statement. We will protect and work with all the different communities on Facebook, whatever their race or religion. Facebook's community standards make it clear that hate speech, violence, and direct threats are not allowed, and we apply significant resources to ensure this.
We have to remember that these are all for-profit corporations whose main goal is to make money, please their shareholders and their advertisers. And so when these companies are faced with pressure from powerful governments, they're of course going to do whatever they can to ensure that they don't get blocked there.
There's never been a company like Facebook before. There's never been a quote-unquote media entity that effectively controls the way that people get their information for billions and billions of people. So even if they're only censoring a tiny proportion of the accounts on Facebook, that's still larger than any traditional media entity has ever controlled.
The one tech company that can rival Facebook for size is Google. The search engine dominates more than 75% of web searches worldwide. In April 2017, Google announced Project OWL, a new set of guidelines for the company's 10,000 plus moderators to flag, quote, low-quality content to be demoted through the search algorithm. In some quarters, there's concern about how subjective and vague these assessments can be. In the months after Project OWL's launch, a number of alternative political analysis websites reported dramatic reductions in web traffic coming from Google searches.
The website I write for, Truthdig, we began to see a precipitous decline in referred traffic. Referred traffic in January of 2017 was about 721,000. By December of that year, it was down to about 240,000. Sites such as Alternet, Consortium News, the World Socialist website, all saw their traffic drop by over 70%.
What Google did there led to what I would consider to be censorship of lots of websites, both on the political left and the political right. Google has the power to influence opinions and votes and purchases without anyone knowing that they're doing so. That's power.
Google's response to these allegations has been one of silence, including to our own request for comment. It is undeniable that the online giants are under pressure to stop fake news and hate speech on their platforms.
Facebook is making it much easier to report hoaxes and mark news as fake.
However, critics say that the dragnet they have cast for content to delete or demote is far wider, catching legitimate voices at the margins. And people are puzzled when they compare what's been taken down with what's been left up. Egyptian journalist Wael Abbas had used his Twitter account to expose the excesses of his government. But Twitter suspended Abbas last December. When we asked them why, Twitter said they don't comment on individual accounts for privacy and security reasons.
I've been in touch with Wael Abbas about this, and his is a really interesting case because it seems that what he had done wrong here is he was using profanity and insults against some of the people that he politically disagreed with. And we see this all the time. We see users who are going up against Nazis, people who are advocating for genocide, and rather than the white supremacist being taken down, it's the person who goes up against them and calls them names. And in this case, the protagonists were a little bit different, of course, but it was nevertheless the same kind of story.
I think the risk is if all of these companies are applying what they call high quality or authoritative filters, they're going to wind up with an incredibly small and narrow group of sort of traditional mainstream media names, and that's going to effectively entrench those outlets, and other sites that do have things that might be worth it for people to read or hear about or think about will never be seen.